Welcome to Open House, the real estate and mortgage show on News Talk 580 CFRA.
With Frank Napolitano and Paul Rushforth, here is Steve Gregory.
And away we go. Beautiful day.
Beautiful winter day.
Weather is kind of like Trump, doesn't know what it wants to do.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful spring weather and more spring weather coming tonight and tomorrow.
Going to be a little nasty over the next 24, 48 hours.
Do not say that five-letter word on our show anymore.
The T word?
The T word. Well, we can call him Donald Tariff. Let's go with Donald Tariff.
DT. Got the DTs.
Still a very popular man in the States, believe it or not.
Well,
you know what? We're not even going to get into politics.
I think we just did.
We're not getting into politics. I don't care which way you swing. That's your decision. That's your vote. Whatever.
Are the tariffs having an effect on people thinking about buying a home, do you think?
You know what? Yes and no. I think there's a lot of optimism with the rates, which is great. And I still think there's lots of people that have been sitting on the sidelines for a long time, and they're focused on the rates. You know, I've said it before, and I said it last week. Is it the right time for you to buy? Only you know, right? Only you know your personal situation when it comes to your job, your stability, things like that. But I know people with the rates coming down are now able to afford. The prices have come down. The rates have come down. People can now afford to get into the market. The only issue is there's some people that are worried about their job stability. They're not getting into the market, which I don't blame them. If you're worried about potential job stability and, change of government potential could change things, tariffs coming, tariffs coming, gone. They can change things. There's lots of variable factors that will either say, yes, I'm ready to hit the market, or no, I'm not ready to hit the market, and you have to do what's good for you. All I can say is the tariffs are affecting it, but at the same time, the drop in the rates have also had a lot of optimism on the market because there's a lot of inventory and the prices are down. So it's a great time to buy if your job stability is good.
Let's say that after this election, within about 2 months, they come to some kind of an agreement. Are we going to have a super strong summer then?
We could. I mean, look what happened last year. Last year, we really didn't have a spring market. People are like, what's going to happen with our spring market? We had a decent summer. And I think that could happen. If right now we're already going to see a little bit of a slowdown. When they called the election last Sunday, we already saw a little bit of a slowdown because of that. I think during the election period, it's going to be a little bit slower, even with the rates the way they are, and another announcement coming in April. I do believe that it's historically a little bit slow around election time. Once the election's over, there still is a lot of uncertainty. People are like, okay, either a new party, same party is in power. They had these promises. Are they going to break these promises? Are they going to keep these promises? So there still is some instability at that point as well. So it usually takes anywhere from 2 weeks to a month after election to figure things out. So you're right, Steve. So now we bypassed April, potentially going to bypass May. And then usually in Canada, and especially in Ottawa, we are June, July, and August is vacation time, kids getting off school at the end of June and people taking off and spending a lot of time enjoying the outdoors. That might be a busy time. And I think it probably will be because we've had so much uncertainty for so long. I think we might start to have a little bit of certainty, hopefully, come the summer months. And we might see people potentially postponing some of these vacations and getting into home ownership. And I think if it is going to happen, it's going to happen very, very soon. Because when I say soon, I mean soon after the election. The reason I say that is only because people want to get in before school. So we might see June being a very, very strong market, and even the start of July being extremely strong as well.
Are they banging down your door for pre-approvals?
Pre-approvals are heavy right now. Certainly a lot of pre-approvals, but there's still uncertainty out there. There's still nervousness out there. Tariffs obviously will impact some jobs. I think we're sheltered as a city in Ottawa. We're not going to be impacted the way other cities are. Certainly southwestern Ontario is going to feel the brunt of the tariffs likely. Quebec is feeling the brunt of the tariffs.
But we'll feel it ultimately, though.
We'll feel it ultimately, but not as badly because we're a government town. So unless there's massive layoffs on the government side, we're not going to see layoffs on the health side. We're not going to see layoffs likely on the high-tech side. The likelihood is not, if anything, we might see an increase on the high-tech side. So I think Ottawa will be sheltered a little bit from the tariffs. But it doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt Ottawa, because if the country does poorly, then it's going to impact all of us. So, at the end of the day, I mean, right now is only a 25% chance of Bank of Canada cutting on April 16th. So,
and going down, it seems, right?
And going down, that number keeps falling. So April 2nd, Liberation Day, will tell a big story of what might happen on April 16th. But the one thing that was interesting that came out yesterday is the fact that the growth has stopped in Canada. So January was there was nice growth in Canada. Economic growth came to a halt in February. And the prognosis is that moving forward, that's going to continue to come down. And that's a problem because Bank of Canada will have to address that, just like they'll have to address unemployment. Should the unemployment rate go up, they're going to have to address that as well, while trying to temper inflation. So carbon tax relief, which is supposed to come on, we should see it. Well, it's funny how we're going to see it immediately at the gas pumps on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
But on the food side, it might take 2 or 3 months before it comes for some reason. So we are seeing stockpiling. There are many companies that are talking about their stockpiling prior to the trades, to the trade war. So that'll be interesting. But at some point, that stockpiling is going to go away as well. So we're really going to see the effects of everything in May or June. But the one thing, and we were at a conference, Canadian Mortgage Broker Association of Ontario had a conference in Toronto on Thursday. And it was very interesting to hear economists. So Douglas Porter was one of the economists that spoke, and he's the Bank of Montreal economist. The word that came out the most, where Donald's favorite word is tariff, our favorite word here is uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It is never, and he said, listen, I've been at this for 40 years. I've never had to use the word uncertainty so much like I do now. Even during the pandemic, there was certainty from a standpoint of we're locked down, we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, decisions were made, right?
Right.
And we stuck to those decisions.
We stuck to it. We're here now. It's like from one day to another, it's a flop. I mean, the auto tariffs come one day, then they're pulled back the next day. It's just the uncertainty that can happen from one day to another. It's got a lot of Canadians scared, and it's got the financial institutions in protective mode right now where, Bank of Montreal came out with, if you're self-employed and you work in these industries, believe it or not, the industries that were listed pretty well include everybody but government and high tech. Everyone that's self-employed is on watch list right now, as far as Bank of Montreal is concerned when it comes to lending, because they're going to dissect your financials. They're going to dissect your credit history. They're going to dissect you and make a decision based on that. And what you used to be able to borrow 2 weeks ago is not what you're going to be able to borrow today. That's the difference.
You talk about the word uncertainty, and I think we've been probably saying that on the show for a good 5 years, right? Ever since COVID started. This is probably bigger than COVID when it comes to uncertainty for sure, because we don't know what's going on. We have so many variables that are at play right now, whereas during COVID, it was mainly...
We knew we were locked down.
We knew it was COVID. We knew it was COVID. We knew that was our variable, was COVID. This is a little different. Now we got rates, we got inflation. We have there's so many things that come into play right now. But I can just say, as Canadians, and especially the Ottawa market, we've gone through a lot of this. So one thing that we do is we tell the truth on this show, but we also, let you know what we believe is going to happen. And I think even through all this uncertainty, we are going to come out the other side. Are we going to come out unscathed? We're going to have some scratches. We are definitely going to have some scratches, but we will come out on the other side. Things will be better because of all this. The market will pick up, and we don't really want to see that unhealthy market that we went through in COVID anyways, going up 22% and 19%. It was just not fair for a lot of consumers, especially buyers. It was not fair for real estate agents, mortgage brokers. The only person who was great for it was sellers. But usually when you sell, what do you have to do? Buy. So it was not really fair all the way around. So I think we're in a more of a natural market. I think, our average sale price will go up modestly this year, which is going to be great, which is a typical market, which is the type of market that we want to be in. So even through all this uncertainty, do not panic. We are in good shape right now, and we'll continue to tell you the facts every single show of what's going on. And we will come out the other end, maybe just a little bit scratched.
At the same time, people have to live somewhere.
They have to live somewhere. Housing is never going away. That's the beauty of that. 10 years from now, I was at a conference this week too that was just full of AI and talking about everything that's coming with robotics and AI and it's insane what is coming and we want to be on the cutting edge. And the one thing that will never go away though is real estate. I mean, people need to buy real estate and mortgages.
But the human element won't go away.
The human element won't go away. I think the way things are going to be done is going to be entirely different, and I think you need to watch because, some of the things we talked about this conference this week, we talked about 10 months ago, and he says, this is what my coach said, this is what's going to happen in 10 months. And it's here. It's here. You either embrace it or you don't embrace it. But I think it's going to be. I think technology almost made a realtor and a mortgage broker's job even harder. AI is actually going to make it very streamlined and a much easier process. And I'm excited with what's coming. But saying that, the world is changing at a fast pace. What we're worried about right now and what we're concerned about right now will be totally different in 4, 5, 6 months from now. Maybe not with the tariffs. Tariffs might be on for a while, but at the same time,
they'll be on again, off again, on again.
But I guess what I'm saying is this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So just stay positive. I'm in a positive mood today, Stephen. I see you smiling at me like,
who is this
guy?
Who should be more positive? I think this world is full of too much negativity today.
Shut up.
But it is. Like, we tend to look for the negative and everything when there's some good in some of the stuff. For all the bad that's happened with this trade war, feels like it's pulled Canada closer together.
There's a lot that's good that's going to come out of this. Lots of good's going to come out of this.
We're going to trade with other countries as opposed to relying on the US
trade with ourselves.
Alone. We're going to trade within ourselves. Hopefully get rid of all these interprovincial barriers that I can't get the real beef that I want from Alberta because there's a tariff that goes with it.
So I'm going to go to the States and buy my beef because it's cheaper.
But the good thing is the pressure is on to do that now.
100%. And I think it needs to stay on. So I kind of hope that there's always the threat of tariffs so that we can continue to grow within ourselves and make our country better by banding together as opposed to provinces banding against each other and putting tariffs on each other.
Love them or hate them, and I don't care which way you go on this with what Trump's doing. He's doing some damage. He's also doing some good. So
unintentional.
Indirectly,
It's unintentional.
Yeah, but I think there's some good that is going to come about this, and I've never seen Canadians so patriotic than I've ever seen right now. Like Canadians are loving Canadians right now, and we want to stick by Canadians, which is amazing. So
I love you, Paul.
I love you too, Stephen. I love you too, buddy.
521 Talk 521-8255. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Frank Napolitano, Paul Rushforth here. Into the phones we go and say hello to Lana in Ottawa. Hello, Lana.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Couldn't be better. Loving the weather. How about you?
Absolutely the same. So quick question. I had a home equity loan, variable fixed rate, I guess. It's roughly probably around 5.7 now, the percentage. Is now the time to flip that over into a mortgage?
You've got a line of credit then, a home equity line of credit.
Yes.
Are you at prime plus 3/4? Is that what your rate is at then? Right? You're at prime plus 3/4, prime plus 0.75?
So, yeah.
Yeah. Which bank has it?
Royal Bank,
yeah. Number one, I mean, most home equity lines of credits today are anywhere between prime plus 0.2 and prime plus 0.5. So you're paying a little more than you should. Is it a good time to convert it? So most people have a home equity line of credit for, we always say take out a home equity line of credit if you're planning on selling your house so that there's no penalty because it's totally open. If you're doing renovations, then once you finish the renovation, you might want to compare the mortgage. If you don't think you're going to pay it off, so in other words, what I would say to you is if you don't think you're going to pay it off in 5 years, I would say to somebody, you're better off to take a variable rate mortgage than you are to take a home equity line of credit. Now, with Royal Bank, inside their line of credit, you can convert a portion of it to a mortgage if you wanted. So,
right.
So,
does it depend how big the line of credit is?
No, I mean, you can have a $500,000 limit with a $300,000 balance, and you can say, can I take $250 of it and convert it to a mortgage and leave the 50 because we think we're going to pay off the 50,000 in the next year or so.
But she's asking, should she do it with the way the rates are right now? Absolutely.
Yes, in a scenario where you're not expecting to pay it off, I would do it. Now, the choice is: are you going to take a variable or are you going to take a fixed? Automatically, if you take a variable, you go from prime plus to prime minus. You should be able to get anywhere between prime minus 3/4 to prime minus 85. So therefore, you're going from prime plus 3/4, which is what it sounds like today. If you go to prime minus 3/4, that's a 1.5% difference. How much is the line of credit for? What's the balance?
I think right now it's about 180.
Yeah, so 180. My quick math tells me you're going to save about $2,500 a year just on interest. So that's worth it. But
so in real numbers, how much?
But you have to understand though, when you go from a line of credit, as a line of credit, you know that your minimum payment is interest only. Once you convert it to a mortgage, now you've got an amortized product. So now you've got to pay principal and interest. Most people want that. But if you're struggling with cash flow, then you may not want that because you might be better off just paying the interest. But if you're okay on your cash flow on a monthly basis, then I would say set it up as aggressively as you could so that you can pay it off sooner. But still stay within your comfort zone and still knowing that you've got some more money available on your limit as a backdrop should things get a little tight.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was concerned about with the recession potentially fully coming. What would happen to some of those variable rates? We saw that during COVID are skyrocketed. And,
they did. Well, they didn't skyrocket during COVID. They skyrocketed once COVID was over and the inflation got out of control is when the rates skyrocketed. Because during COVID, a prime rate was at 2.45, so it was free money, right, if you had a variable rate mortgage. So... But as long as you have as long as you have some limit left over, should you need it for the rainy day. So if your balance is 180, but your limit is 250, well, you've got $70,000 left over. So you could convert it, and then you've got that $70,000 for that rainy day still available to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's pretty smart, eh, Lana?
I don't know.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Lana's more confused than ever right now. But
no, she's not.
No.
Some days
kind of goes along what we were thinking.
Yeah, good. It should, it makes financial sense for you guys.
Yeah.
Right. Banks are Royal Bank's not doing too poorly. I believe the last quarter was $5 billion net after income tax. So
how do they survive on that?
So Lana's helping them.
So you don't have to help them as much.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Lana.
Is there another mortgage specialist that people should go to?
Is there what? Sorry?
Like another lender that would have better rates?
No, well...
Frank, is there? Frank?
Well,
Frank,
there is.
Anybody you can think of? Frank?
Lana, did you really ask that on air? What do you want Frank to say? Call my friend John Smith. He's great.
No, but what I'm saying is that, if Royal Bank gives you a competitive rate, then you're okay. But this is where you got to hold their feet to the fire. And if you say to them, listen, I know I can get prime minus 75, prime minus 85, and if they come back and say, well, and I had a client do this week, well, they said they want something in writing. It's like, are they calling you a liar, number one? Okay. So is that who you want to deal with? And number two, so did they say to you, well, if you get me something in writing, I can match it? Well, then that's even worse, in my opinion, because they're saying, we don't really value you. We think you're lying, number one. And number two, we don't really value you to give you our best rate unless you're threatening to leave us. To me, that's not the way I want to do business with a company. And I would leave in a heartbeat. Just on principle, I would leave. So, but you should be able to go to them and say, listen, I know I can get prime minus 75, prime minus 85. If you give me that rate without me having to give you anything and don't challenge me, then lock it in. But if you're not going to do that, then I'm going to move my mortgage elsewhere.
And how complicated is that?
Not very complicated at all. Very easy. As long as you qualify. Again, I mean, for some people, unfortunately, they got their mortgage when they were employed, and now they might be unemployed, or now they might be on pension, and their income is significantly less. That's where you got to be careful, where you may not qualify to go somewhere else. So, but again, that's what the conversation with someone like me does. It just opens up the door to know what you're capable of doing, and then be able to use it to your advantage.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lana.
Thanks, Lana.
Thanks, Lana.
So much.
At the very worst, you should convert a portion of that line of credit.
I think so.
Yeah.
If you're not planning on paying it off entirely, I think you should. And I think you should go into a variable rate mortgage just because the expectation is that interest rates will still come down as we go through this time of uncertainty. There's certainly no threat of interest rates going up right now. Yes, there's a little bit of a fear about inflation going up with tariffs, but the fear is outweighed by the fact that hopefully carbon tax isn't just an election ploy and it goes on for the future, number one. And then number two, the fact that unemployment numbers might go up drastically and the Bank of Canada will have to step in and lower interest rates to make sure that the economy stays on par.
Economists' forecasts are all over the map right now. Some are saying it's going to stay at 2.75. Some say 2.25. Some say 2.
Some say 1.5. One bank says 1.5 because the tariffs are going to create that much unemployment. They feel
there's no bank that says the same thing right now.
No,
they're all over the map with their. But that's economists. They're just like that, right? All their opinions.
Well, it's even harder now
because there's too many variables, right?
Yeah. It's even harder now because they don't know what's going to happen from one week to another. That's the challenge right now.
But the market we're in, I know she mentioned something like, well, you never know. Variable could go up and this and that. In the market we're in right now, the environment we're in right now, there's no risk of that, in my opinion.
Little risk.
Certainly not.
I never say no risk, but I say very little risk.
Minimal.
Based on what we're seeing right now. But that could change.
Yeah.
That could change so quickly.
Well, now, they do say the rate would have stayed the same had it not been for tariffs.
Well, the threat of tariffs.
Yeah.
But But if we go back before the tariff word even became this popular word that we've never used so much in our lives, in January, the outcome the forecast was for Bank of Canada to probably lower interest rate to their neutral, which is closer to 2%. They're 2.75% right now. So it was going to happen. It was just going to be broken up a little bit more, where now we've seen the first two announcements already with 0.25% drops, and certainly the tariffs had an impact on it in the second one. And they were likely going to go on the sidelines for the March one and then do it again in April. So now I think what they've done is just advanced it with the uncertainty, where they did a quarter in January, quarter in March, and they could stand pat. If the tariffs don't go into effect, they could stand pat on April 16th.
Well, at least we've got April 2nd before they make their decision.
Well, we'll have that day, and then we've got
whatever
some numbers
whatever that
out.
means.
We'll
now.
know more. We'll know more.
No, but we'll have our job report come out before that, and we'll have our inflation numbers come out before that, and those will also be a telling tale to what Bank of Canada does.
And they
along
should
with
be
the
higher,
tariffs.
right? The inflation numbers.
The inflation number, but again, if it's less than 3%, I get it that it went up in the month, but it went up because of the tax rebates that were available during that little break. So that was the main reason. It's still a head scratcher to see that gasoline went up when I look at the price of oil a year ago versus the price of oil now, and it decreased by 10%, yet for some reason oil costs more.
Well, people are using more because they're getting rid of their Teslas.
Is that yeah?
I mean, who drives a Tesla anyways nowadays,
521
right?
Talk, 521-8255. We will be right back. A lot of questions today. To the phone we go and say hello to Robert in Ottawa. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Morning.
And we are ready for you. Boy, we've been studying. We're prepared.
Oh, perfect. Well, about 5 years ago, I took out a line of credit on my primary residence, which is fully paid off, to purchase a rental property.
Okay.
I was wondering if what the general thinking is of paying off that line of credit with cash flow from the rental property.
Well, I think it makes sense. I mean, you don't. Now, again, you're free and clear on your existing home. Normally, I would say if you got cash flow, pay off the mortgage on your house. What a lot of people have done so they did exactly what you did, because obviously there's a tax advantage to using your line of credit on your house to use for the down payment, to use for the rental property, which allows you to write off the interest on both the mortgage on the rental property and the line of credit on your house. What a lot of people do is once that 5-year mark hits, what they'll do is they will take the line of credit, and because obviously over the last 5 years, what did you pay for the property 5 years ago?
$425.
What's it worth today?
About $700.
Right. So you've got the equity in there to be able to take that line of credit, make your home free and clear again, and be able to add it to the mortgage and put the two together so that it's specifically on your rental property. So that's what most people will do. Now, if you want to pay it off, you can pay it off, but then you've got positive rental cash flow depending on where your tax bracket is with your normal income. Does it put you to another level? So that's what most people will look. That's why I would say, I might want to sit down with your accountant and discuss which one is the best option from a tax perspective side of it.
You're sitting with a house paid off and potentially eventually an investment property paid off, which is, in my opinion, a bank account full of money. If you're comfortable with buying more property, I would be buying more property. You got rates coming down, you have prices coming down. It's a good time to get into the market for simple townhouses and condos and terrace homes for a rental purpose. And you're sitting here with a bank full of money. I mean, I love the strategy, and I don't know how old you are, but different age groups have different strategies when it comes to paying off property and not paying off property. But you're sitting with a lot of wealth right there paid off, that if you want to build more wealth, I would create more doors and I would get back into the rental market and buy another property or two is what I would do.
If it could cash flow.
If they could cash flow. But listen, nowadays, anything that's somewhat neutral, maybe a tiny bit underwater, is still a good investment, because we are seeing that prices are, in my opinion, as low as they're going to go for quite a while. And I think the only way they have is to go up as the rates are coming down. Inventory is starting to increase up. So we're stretching towards a balance to a buyer's market. So you're in the driver's seat right now. Rates coming down, lots of inventory, prices down where I think they're probably at their lowest. You have a bank account full of money right now. I would personally buy more property if I was you. That's what I personally have done to build wealth.
Depends where you're at in life, right?
That's what I just said. Depends on your age, where you are at life. I mean, if you're comfortable having a couple properties paid off and just taking that rental income and doing whatever you want with it, that's amazing. But there's also an appetite, if you do have an appetite for buying more property and doing this all over again. And then 10 years from now, sitting here with 2, 3, 4 properties paid off, principal residence paid off, and living off all that cash flow. So depending on where you are in life, I mean, there's no wrong answer, but depending on what your stress level is and what your appetite is, we can show you how to build more wealth for sure.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for the question.
Robert. Where are investors at in the market right now?
Well, you know what? We're kind of neutral right now. We went through a period where everybody wanted investment properties and everybody wanted to make sure they can accumulate wealth indoors and that. And then we saw, as we saw the prices skyrocket and rates skyrocket, it didn't make a lot of sense to buy investment properties here in Ottawa and Canada in general. But I'm just talking about the Ottawa market. So you saw a lot of people backing off investment properties. Now we're seeing rates come down and stabilize again. We're seeing prices come down and stabilize again. So there are some cash flow positive / neutral investments out there, which are good investments. As we mentioned last week on the show, buying investment properties is always the easiest and the smartest way to build wealth. Let me scratch that word easiest, actually, because now we know what we know about tenants and how hard it is to deal with tenants and how they have all the rights and the rules and everything on their side. So you have to make sure that you know the tenant game, you know how to get the right tenant. Let us help you do that. Credit checks are everything. Doing a track record check on the tenants is everything right now. But if you get a great tenant, it's a great time to buy investment properties, mainly because of the metrics of where we are with rates and where we are with the market.
With the amount of wealth the investors have accumulated in the last 5 years, are there some cashing out now?
There are a lot cashing out. I must admit there are some. I mean, if you bought a investment property just before the market climbed during COVID, and you bought, say, a simple townhome in suburbia for, $350, $375, and now it's worth, $650, $700. You had your tenants paying it down. Maybe you were in a fixed rate, so you didn't have to worry about the rates going skyrocket, and you built a lot of wealth. There are some that are like, you know what? I just don't like the way tenants are going right now. I'm going to cash out. I'm going to do something more passive with my money. There are people doing that. I'm kind of doing a hybrid model of that. I'm keeping investment properties, but I'm also cashing some in right now and doing some passive investments and doing some other things to build some wealth. But I'll never say that, buying doors is a bad thing, because we've seen over time, it's not like the stock market where you're just kind of rolling the dice. We've seen over time what the real estate market can do and how many people have built tons of wealth in the real estate market. So I'll never say it's a bad idea. I'm a strong believer in building wealth through real estate, through doors, but more than any time in history, you have to do it very smart right now. And trying to do it on your own, I think, is a massive mistake. Trying to buy an investment property on your own is a massive mistake. You should always use a realtor's service, especially now. To get a tenant, always use a realtor's services, because you need to find that right tenant, and we do all the work for you.
Are there a lot of properties available? Where are we at for listings right now?
Listings are high. I mean, with our new system we use, it's always all over the map to figure out how many listings we actually have on the market right now, but we are high. We ended February at 3,500 listings on the market. We're probably going to be much higher than that right now. So there is good choice out there. Things are still selling, but we're seeing listings hit the market. Like, Greg, you can probably vouch for this when it comes to March. I mean, the numbers, the month is not over yet, but would you say you're well ahead of where you were shooting properties last March?
I think on par right now.
Okay.
And that's, and only because of the election call that just came this week. This past week was a little quieter than we expected, but I'll tell you, next week, I'm jammed.
Yeah, that's good news. I mean, homes are hitting the market, but I've had numerous conversations with sellers over the last probably 3, 4, 5 weeks saying, guys, they're worried about their house selling in today's market. And I'm just saying, guys, listen, if you want to listen to us and make sure your house is ready to go and shows really, really well, but it has to be priced accordingly. You can't, there's still some sellers who are stuck in the COVID era where it's like, I know my home is only worth $700, but I'm going to try it at $950. Yeah, those days are so gone. It's unbelievable. We're back to it.
You can hope.
You can hope. But I'll be very honest with them and say, here's what's going to happen. You're probably going to get showings on your house because they're just showing your house as they show the other 7 around the area. or you're going to get no showings because they think your price is ridiculous. So
yeah, it'll be excused out of hand as soon as you see the listing, right? You're going to go, well, this is crazy.
This is ridiculous. This is crazy. Or, I mean, why is this house priced here it is? And you're seeing it right now. I mean, when we do searches for properties, anything that's priced really, really well is selling anywhere between 98 to 99.5% of asking price. So you're getting almost what you're asking. Anything that is priced ridiculous, what happens is people say, let's just try it for 3 weeks. Well, at that point, you're now stale on the market. People look at your listing like, what's wrong with it? So now you're having to reduce the price lower than what I originally told you. And then people start coming in with lowball offers. And now you're getting well under what you would have if you would have priced it accordingly. And it's the biggest mistake right now. And sellers are still in that, I'm in COVID and my neighbor got this, and so I think I can get this. Throw it out at the window, because what your neighbor got 2-3 years ago, you're not getting. You're just not getting. So, but saying that, I mean, we had a conversation with a seller this week that, sure, their house probably could have been priced at 1.2 2-3 years ago, and now we're pricing it at 1.1. And they're like, oh, I just lost $100,000. And I'm like, well, no, you didn't, because if we didn't go through that crazy stretch during COVID, you and I'd be having a conversation right now of pricing your home at $850 to $900. So we're talking about 1.1. So you're well ahead of where you would have been. You've built up all this equity. So you're a winner right now. Don't look at that you've lost $100,000. You've gained $200,000, $300,000 by all the appreciation during the COVID months.
And people need to be looking at it differently. People need to be looking at it differently, because yes, maybe it's down $100,000 from 2 years ago, but if you were buying another home 2 years ago, you would have paid $100,000 more than you will today. So, now if you're selling an investment property, which, by the way, I've had quite a few people that have called me and said, Frank, I want to go into an open because I bought this investment property 5 years ago. We're struggling to make ends meet, and I think we built up $250,000 worth of equity. That would really help us lower our mortgage amount, pay off all our bills, and be able to have a reasonable. So it actually did the job for us. It actually allowed us to acquire some equity because it made financial sense to get it. But for me to pay off all my bills right now, I need to increase the mortgage on the investment property, and now I'm going to be negative cash flow. So for us, I think we're nervous doing that. So I think we're going to sell it. So I think on our mortgage, it's up for renewal right now on our house, which is now in 2 months, but the rental is up in 4 months. We want to put it into an open. So that makes, again, Paul says it's an individual choice. Buying today may be the best time to buy if you're ready to buy. But if you're not ready to buy and you're ready to buy in September, then wait until September to buy. You might pay a little more, but the interest rates may be lower, so those may offset each other. There might be a whole bunch of listings because, again, the economy is struggling, or there could be less listings because the tariffs have gone away and life is back to normal. We don't know. That's the uncertain part today.
And I agree with Frank in the way that there are some people selling. I don't really agree with them. I'm just saying it for the show to make them feel good, but I don't really agree with them. But here's the truth. If you are looking to sell that investment property, there's a lot of myth out there that it's no problem to sell that investment property. Oh, no problem. I'll just kick out my tenant. Good luck.
No, that's
You
true.
just can't do that. Oh, I'll just sell it with my tenant in it. Good luck. You know what I mean? So
if you're selling an investment property with a tenant in it, are you trying to get the tenant out before you list
sometimes.
it?
Absolutely, you're trying.
No, but sometimes no. If they're paying fair market value and the guy's buying or somebody's buying an investment property, then having a tenant that's a good tenant might be a good idea.
It might be. It might be.
But if you're not selling it as an investment property, is it a problem for the buyer?
But if you're selling it with a tenant in it, you really have to sell it as an investment property. Well, how many people are looking for investment properties compared to homes to live in? Probably a very small portion. So now you're looking to live in, and you're like, no problem. I'll just give the tenant that 2 months notice. Good luck with that too. Like, there's a challenge with that too, and I'm not going to get into it on the show. But if you are selling an investment property and you think you're going to sell it on your own, or 2, you think you're going to sell it just as cheap as possible with whoever is possible, massive mistake right there. It's an expertise now to sell an investment property with a tenant in or a tenant out, to be honest with you. It's an expertise because the tenants control exactly what happens to that property. So if you are thinking of selling a home with or without a tenant in it, or thinking of kicking out a tenant, you may want to call us first because it's not that easy. It's definitely not that easy, especially selling it with a tenant in. And with a tenant trying to kick out a tenant nowadays, good luck. Good luck with that.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We will be right back. Welcome back to the show. Last weekend of winter, sort of.
Well, are we not in spring? Or are we not?
Well, we're in spring.
We're in
but
spring,
sure doesn't feel like it right now. Let's go to James in Orleans. Maybe he'll heat things up. Hello, James.
Hello, how are you?
We're great.
Good. Quick question. In regards to part is the tariffs. I understand that if products are coming in, they're going to start charging a lot more on that. But nobody's talking about the carbon tax. It's supposed to be coming in April 1st at 20%. And how does that, to me, that would have a bigger impact because if we decide just to buy the products within Canada to build the houses.
That's the big if, though, right? Do we have all the products to be able to build houses within Canada? Now, I think we're safe on the wood part of it. I think we're safe on the aluminum and the steel part of it. But there's still quite a few materials that come from the U.S., and if tariffs are put on that, then the likelihood is that the prices of homes could go up. But, the GST or saving the GST on new homes, I think will go a long way. That's going to be significant. It could help by $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 on a home. So if tariffs were to hit, maybe we don't see the savings because the tariffs wash it away. But at least we shouldn't see the prices of new homes going up. I think we should see them at the very least on the neutral level and hopefully even a little bit lower. Renovations, same thing for people that are doing renovations on homes. The hope is that the tariffs don't hit some of the building materials that we need. But if they do, then the likelihood is that we could see a slight increase in materials to do homes.
I sell all the product for Clement Homes, for Charles Clement, and I had a good conversation with him last week and this week about the products too. And the smart builders, and I'm assuming most medium and large builders are quite savvy and smart. They're business people. They have been able to source, I think, almost 100% of what they're doing from Canada. The last thing they were struggling with was the HVAC system. They're now able to get that in Canada. They have a supplier in Canada. The only thing that could hurt us, so we should be able to build homes strictly from Canadian goods, Canadian products. The only thing that's going to hurt us now is if some of these Canadian companies realize, oh, I'm the only game in town, and they start jacking up their prices. That's the only thing that's going to hurt us. But he has gone and he's secured all his contracts, secured all his supplies, secured everything for years to make sure that he maintains his pricing, if not sometimes even lowering his pricing. But he was very confident that his new build is not going up in price. I mean, everything goes up, obviously, and over time. But because of product, his build won't go up. And Charles is a bigger size, medium size builder. But you can't tell me that the smart large builders like the Madamies and the Mintos and the EQ Homes and all these big builders haven't done the same thing. They have done the same thing. So I don't know if we have to be as concerned about new home building right now as we probably were when we heard the word tariffs. So I think we should have some good news. And then obviously,
it should get easier with interprovincial trade.
It should be. And if we could take the tariffs off interprovincial trade and make that much easier, I think we could get just as great supplies from, the BCs and the Albertas of the world as we can from the Californias of the world. So I think that we should be in decent shape. And I think, most people are worried about the tariffs and about, construction supplies and new home builds. But I think the builders have become very, very smart and savvy and done a really good job of outsourcing Canadian product. And when I talked to Charles Clement from Clement Homes about this, he actually said, I will never go back to the way it used to be with American-built, supplies and products. So I think we're in great shape, and I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Thank you, James. We got to move along. Before we wrap up, there's an election on.
There is?
What would you like to see the federal government do for mortgages?
For mortgages? I'd like them to really, number one, we still have a housing supply problem, so I think they need to really focus because
I'm talking about mortgage
but as long as we have a housing supply issue, the cost of houses is going to go up, which makes it unaffordable for Canadians to get mortgages. So I know that right now we're in trial mode on this LTI with the lenders for mortgages. So LTI is loan to income. The thinking is, and it's being used in other countries, 4 to 4.5 times your income is what you qualify for a mortgage. But what this does is it eliminates the stress test. So eliminates the fact that we have to add 2 percentage points to the contract rate. But you're limited to 4 to 4.5 times your income, and they're testing both out. So depending on where the economy goes, I think is where they're going to land, that they're able to move that number. So what that means is if you're making $100,000, you can get a $400,000 or $450,000 mortgage. Now, it doesn't prevent lenders from going above that 4.5, but the lenders are going to be restricted to, depending on their portfolio and their capital requirements, they're going to be restricted to maybe 15 or 20% of the approvals that are going to be beyond that 4.5. So they're going to be allowed to do that. But I hope the government passes that, because that's a true way to lend money, where at least you're on top of, number one, you're doing contract rate, which makes so much sense. This +2, the stress test, works during a pandemic area, but it doesn't work when the interest rates are maybe higher than what they normally should be. So, for mortgages, maybe we see 35-year amortization. If the cost of homes continue to go up, 35-year amortization. So I think the government has to get their head around financial freedom from a standpoint of people being mortgage-free at retirement. I think the goal should be make sure that you have a lot of equity in your property at retirement so that you've got something to fall back on, as opposed to, getting rid of this. And the other thing we need is financial literacy. I think it's time for the government to invest in financial literacy, whether it's doing it in high school. But these kids come out of high school with absolutely zero financial literacy. They have no idea how to pay their credit cards. They have no idea. I'd like to see how to acquire a mortgage, what's involved in acquiring a mortgage. They'll go out and buy a $70,000 car and take out a loan and then realize now they don't qualify for a mortgage anymore because they got this big car loan payment. I'd like to see financial literacy come to the forefront.
I was going to ask you.
I'll have to wait till the next show for my opinion. My opinion will be next show. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we'll ask you next week.
By the way, speaking of next week, I'm away at a lender conference, not in the U.S. I'll be snowmobiling in the glaciers in Iceland at the time of the show running next week.
Don't take any naked pictures.
No. There's no Paul in a Speedo in this picture. So, but anyway,
beautiful vision.
But beautiful and talented Lisa Belanger from Mortgage Brokers Auto, who's been with us since day one, so a little over 20 years, will be doing the show in my place. So
nice.
Look forward to Lisa next week.
Birthdays,
I've got just a couple.
Here we go. Now.
There we go. My nephew, Michael.
Go for a coffee, Paul.
Yeah, let's go.
My nephew, Michael Napolitano, celebrating his birthday tomorrow. Artie, Derek Artichuk, who's been with us again, probably close to 20 years. Amazing mortgage agent, mortgage broker, celebrating his birthday. Porter Lateral, Karen's son, who works on my team, celebrating his birthday. And Nash. So Nash celebrated his birthday last week, Angie and Adam's son, Nash. And he celebrated his 9th birthday, and both Paul and I missed it last week. So apologies, but the amazing Nash Cote celebrated his 9th birthday last week.
Anything coming up in April?
What?
For
besides an election?
For birthdays?
Oh, stop it.
I'll do my birthdays next week, too.
Imagine if I did what Paul did. Let's see. This staff member celebrating 14 years.
I can't even say that now, so we'll talk about that next show.
You got any birthdays, Paul?
No, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Support Canadian businesses and charities, everyone.
Still going.
Yes, I am.
Have a good week.